Subaru is the latest company to get in on the hands-free driving craze. This is the all-new Subaru Outback, and if you get the top two trims, you don't have the option of hands-free driving. You have hands-free driving standard, which is also an interesting twist. And that means you can get hands off the wheel for a lot less than the competition. Let's talk about how the system works, then we'll take it out for a test drive out here in Arizona. First things first, this still has eyesight. This is sort of eyesight plus. So here we have the 3-camera setup that we find in other Subaru models. This gives the car stereo vision and then an extra camera for extra object recognition. It, by all appearances, is still using these cameras for the adaptive cruise control profile. But importantly, unlike other Subarus, somewhere up front, there are millimeter wave radar sensors. Now, Subaru has not said exactly where they are, but they were real specific that we actually have radar detection here. That coupled with a 3D map and of course telematics integration with a satellite connection, a cellular connection to those satellite maps enables this to be hands off the wheel. So without further ado, let's see how it works. Let's hop inside and talk about the basics. Over here we have our adaptive cruise control button and the steering assist button. You use that button to engage the hands-free system or the hands on the wheel system. And then the car, via the instrument cluster, will tell you what drive mode is available. So right here it says that the system is ready for hands on the wheel, and that's going to change when hands off the wheel is available. Unlike SubaCruise, where it's all focused right here on the instrument cluster display, Subaru also gives you some LEDs that bounce up off the windscreen right there. So I find that really handy because in a SuperCruise vehicle, so far my favorite in this segment, it has a big light bar right here on the steering wheel. So it's really easy to tell what mode the setup is in. But here, this has the promise of being just about as good as a head-up display with a lot less cost, of course, than the LED light bar. So let's see how this works. All right, it's time to get this out on Interstate 17. Travis is, of course, sitting right seat here, so we can point cameras where they are needed in a safe fashion, because we do need to talk about some of the safety tech that's built into this system, assuming there's, as little traffic as possible here to engage that. So let's go ahead, get on this 75-mile-an-hour freeway, and we will set the cruise control, of course, using the buttons over here on the steering wheel. It does let us know that I veered out of my lane, so lane warning definitely engaged. You'll see that the speed is listed there at 65 miles an hour, and it is green. Up here, we now have hands-free driving mode. So it's blue there, but importantly up here, I don't know if Travis can actually see those LEDs reflecting off of the dashboard, but they have turned blue, and they're really in the line of sight for me. They're very much at that level that a head-up display would be. And I'm surprised, even out here in relatively bright Arizona, they're pretty visible. So definitely better, I would say, than Ford's SubaCruise system, where sometimes I'm upset that it's not easy to tell what the system is wanting you to do. In SubaCruise, there are times where the system has disengaged the steering, and I'm not aware of it because all that happened was the screen stopped being blue. It didn't bing, all those things. So let's just sort of cruise along and we'll see how this system does. Now, the first thing I should disclose is that Subaru has been real specific that this is not production software yet. And apparently it is possible that when you buy an Outback, the top two trims only, where the hardware is included, the software may not be ready yet for you either. So if you buy one of these, you may have to wait for that final software to actually roll out. And of course, we'll have this at home to do a final test on it. But right now, we're solidly in the hands-free drive mode, and it's lane centering pretty nicely. I do notice that it is weaving a little bit more side to side than I might normally do. I would say it's a little bit closer to SubaCruise in that respect than the General Motors SuperCruise system that we find in Chevys and Cadillacs. Now, cost is something that we should definitely talk about. This is the most expensive Outback that we are driving right here. All in with destination, we're talking just under $50,000. That's kind of what's interesting about this system, is that Subaru's implementation with the existing cameras that they already have there, and just the addition of the radar sensor up front, is relatively inexpensive compared to a lot of manufacturers' hands-free driving implementations. They already had the driver monitoring set up here, which is part of the package as well. And that's why this is not an option box that you have to check. This system is going to be standard in the top two trims of Outback. You just have to decide whether you want to use it or whether you don't want to use it. Once the Subaru in the other lane next to me that is rather sadly driving hands on the wheel gets out of its lane, we're going to try out one of the other features, which is the lane change assist feature. Now, unlike SuperCruise, this will not automatically initiate lane changes, but you can do it manually with the turn signal there. Moves over into the lane actually quite nicely. Let's go ahead and accelerate in this lane so we're not holding up the traffic. We'll bump it up there to 75 since that is the speed limit here. Check the higher speed operation. And then we'll move back over to the right. So actually pretty slick, pretty smooth, not abrupt at all like some of those lane change systems can feel. Let's go ahead and set the cruise control just a tiny bit above 75 so we can see how it handles this vehicle in front of us. Another nice touch is that you can use the accelerator pedal if you want to pass someone. So you can have it do the automatic lane change, you can hit the accelerator pedal, it will still be steering for you hands off, but obviously foot on that pedal, and it'll make that lane change without canceling the system. So right now, we've snugged up against this truck. Interestingly, it is not suggesting a lane change or anything like that. This software is going to be updated over the air in the future, but at least for the moment, you are going to have to actually initiate that lane change right there. Then it will pass the vehicle, and it also does not let you know, hey, you're camping out in the left lane, maybe now is the time to move over. Now, passing that semi, it doesn't visibly shift itself over in the lane like SuperCruise does. It stayed pretty centered. It's a little bit difficult to tell whether it moved over at all. It may be a minor shift like we find in Blue Cruise, but it certainly doesn't do that dramatic move over to the left side of the lane as you're passing something large. So if that's of interest to you, that is a differentiator. But remember, SuperCruise is nearly a $3,000 or actually over a $3,000 option in some General Motors vehicles. The exact pricing depends on the vehicle we're talking about, but it's going to be at least a $2,000 option in any of those vehicles. So here, the entry point is much lower, and depending on exactly how you consider this segment, this is also one of the very few models that offers this kind of feature. Jeep has dabbled in the Grand Cherokee. Availability is severely limited, and then there are a select number of GM vehicles that have this feature. We also have some Nissan models that are offering hands-free driving, but availability there is also somewhat limited. Now, since Subaru is a brand steeped in safety, we should talk about what happens when you don't take control. I will say that the system is actually pretty decent about the driver being able to look around and see where they're going. I can look over there and check over there to see what traffic is like without it being too annoying. But let's sort of count the seconds while Travis is paying attention here, and I'm just sort of gingerly holding onto the wheel just in case. I'll just look straight into the camera and let's see exactly how long it takes before the car realizes, oh, there we go, eyes on the road. So it's a little bit less than 10 seconds by my estimation. We'll put the counter down there. That's when the car first says, hey, put your eyes back on the road. From that point, things are going to start escalating. Not just because you might not be paying attention, but because Subaru is concerned maybe you're not feeling well. Now let's check that out in action. So what if I'm incapacitated? I'm just going to go ahead and look over here for a while. Well, again, Travis is making sure everything is safe, and I'm holding one hand over here on the steering wheel. So first, of course, we're going to get that hands on the wheel notification. Then things are going to escalate from there, as I said. So more dinging, more dinging, more dinging. Eyes on the road. Main screen says eyes on the road. Now we're slowing down. Now we're getting braking motions, etc. If I were to allow this to continue, the vehicle would do something that the regular Outbacks do not. It would actually not only slow down, come to a complete stop, it would actually move over to the shoulder. And that's because of the 3D maps that the system has and the extra sensors on board. So it knows, hey, there's a shoulder. The shoulder is large enough for the car, and I can safely stop on it. The system's also intelligent enough to know that, hey, there isn't a shoulder there. So the right thing to do in that instance is stop in the lane of travel. Now, obviously this is an emergency situation, of course, and some people might be worried about that, but stopping in the lane of travel is going to be safer than just plowing into whatever like Wile E. Coyote. You know, that's going to be a bad situation. But as far as the rest of the system goes, I have to say I am impressed, especially for a first implementation. And this is not a system that they've borrowed from someone. So it's not like they've taken the Lexus teammate system from Toyota, which does own some portion of Subaru, and smushed it into the car. This is a Subaru homebrewed implementation, which is part of why I am A, intrigued, but also B, why it's really quite affordable, because that is one of the things that Subaru has been incredibly focused on with this particular system. They're not interested in taking you from A to B like full self-driving in a Tesla. This is a sort of a driver assist system, a fatigue assistance system on long highway journeys like this. It is, at least for the moment, not going to be operating on smaller artery kind of roadways. So by all appearances, no farm to market roads in Texas, none of the smaller rural highways, etc. It's really at the moment focused on this interstate driving situation where the cameras and all those other systems can really work well. So let me know what you think about all that down there in the comment section below, and stay tuned because we're going to have a better full drive on this once the production software is in place. And of course, if you haven't seen the rest of the Subaru Outback, be sure and check out that video too. See all of you later.